Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Gabby and welcome. If you've never been here before, never watched any of my videos, have no idea what I do here on my channel, I cover true crime cases. Pretty much all the cases that I cover are a little bit older. They're all basically 20 years or older. So if that's something that you might be interested in, maybe go down below, click that subscribe button, and also make sure to turn on the post notification to be notified every time that I upload. Now, if you are new here in this month of December, you may not know that December I do a series on my channel called Doe-cember, meaning that every single case that I cover this month has to do with a John or Jane Doe. Today I'm going to be covering a very interesting case, but before I get into the case, I do have to say that today's video is sponsored, and it is sponsored by, yet again, one of my favorite companies to work with, and that is Magellan TV. If you are a regular viewer of my channel, then you may be familiar with this service. Magellan TV is a streaming service with over 3,000 documentaries and docuseries from some of the best filmmakers and networks from all around the world. They have a ton of different genres, but of course the true crime section is my favorite, and they add crazy 15 to 20 hours of new content every single week, so us fans will never run out of content to watch. And this content can be viewed anywhere or anytime. It's compatible with most devices, so you don't have to worry about that. Every time that I talk about Magellan TV on my channel, I always have a new recommendation for you all from the service, and my recommendation this time is a short documentary called A Stolen Life, the Sasha Lee Crook story. 8-year-old Sasha Lee Crook begged her mother to spend the winter holiday with her grandparents. Her mother had a strange feeling about letting Sasha and her siblings go, but eventually said yes. That would be the last time she ever saw her daughter, because on July 6th of the year 2003, Sasha would vanish from right outside her grandparents' home. This is one of those cases that will infuriate you, from police negligence to an improper investigation to the person being responsible being under everyone's noses the entire time. Lies and deceit, but overall, a mother's worst nightmare. If you want to see a mother who is strong as hell, this documentary features just that. It is a short documentary, but in that short amount of time, you feel so many different emotions. I highly recommend watching this documentary if you have Magellan TV or you are going to get the service. If you have not already signed up for Magellan TV, they have an insane deal going on right now for the holidays. Until December 31st, viewers can take advantage of a special holiday offer. You can get a buy one, get one free gift card for an annual membership by clicking on the link in the description of this video. I have to put this out there that if you're looking for a Christmas gift for somebody who loves learning, who loves documentaries, this would be a perfect gift. Thank you, Magellan TV, for sponsoring yet again another one of my videos. And with all that being said, let's get right into it. As you can tell by the title of this video, today we're going to be diving into the case of the cheerleader in the trunk. And I personally have a little bit of an issue with the name of this Jane Doe. I just personally don't think they named her properly, and you will see 100% what I mean by that further along in the video. But I am going to be referring to this video and to her as the cheerleader in the trunk because by definition, that is what this case is called and what they refer to her as. But let's just get into it. This is the case of the cheerleader in the trunk. This story begins in Gambrel State Park, located in Frederick, Maryland. Gambrel State Park is a gorgeous mountain park that is located on the very ridge of the Catoctin Mountains. It has 16 miles of trails for different activities, such as hiking, biking, and horseback riding. It also has areas for camping, such as the Rock Run Campground that is open annually from the beginning of April to the end of October. It's overall just a place for people to get away from their everyday lives and enjoy a little bit of the beauty that nature has to offer. But like we've discussed so many times here on my channel, places of beauty can sometimes also have some ugly bits of history to them. On August 24th of the year 1982, a couple of men looking for mushrooms were hiking through Gambrel State Park when they stumbled upon something they never expected to find. The men found a steamer trunk off a gravel road. They thought what most anyone in this situation would think, like, what is this trunk doing in the middle of the wilderness? Now, if you're not too familiar with what a steamer trunk is a really sturdy trunk most often used back in the day to carry belongings, originally for people boarding a steamship, but then they became a little bit more popular. People would use them if they were, say, going off to school or just to travel with in general. You kind of knew that all your belongings would be pretty well protected in this heavy duty trunk. Like if you go into any antique shop in today's time, you'll probably see a steamer trunk there. And if you watch any scary movie and someone finds some strange, creepy belongings in the attic of an old home, they're literally always found in a steamer trunk. Well, the steamer trunk was just sitting there in the woods, and it kind of looked like whoever left it there almost tried to lazily cover it up. If you looked at it, you could obviously tell it was a trunk, but there was some debris just thrown on top of it. Whoever left it there just didn't try too hard to conceal it. It's like they just dropped it off there and was like, we're just gonna like put some stuff on top of it and hopefully nobody sees it. Well, the two men go up to the trunk to see what's inside. Their curiosity got the best of them. Maybe they were hoping to find something unique inside of it, some old pictures, clothing, or newspapers, things usually found inside a trunk like this. But no, what they found was something that made their blood run completely cold. Inside the trunk were skeletal remains. Along with the skeleton was a lot of brunette hair and a dark red towel, meaning she was put in this trunk completely nude. I'm sure these two men were very shaken up at this time, but they did the right thing. They left the trail, went back to find a phone, and they called authorities immediately. Authorities were called, came to the scene of the trunk, and took the entire trunk to the local coroner. An initial examination was done of the skeletal remains, and the time of death could not be pinpointed. They stated that the person died anywhere between several months up to 10 years before the trunk was found, meaning that this unknown individual found in the trunk could have died anywhere between the years of 1972 to 1983. Here's a composite sketch done in the year of 1983 of the Jane Doe. They determined the remains belonged to a white woman with shoulder-length dark brown hair, but there are some reports that claim her hair may have been dyed and that her natural hair color was more of an auburn shade. They determined that her hair was most likely dyed due to her natural pubic hair found in the trunk. Her height was estimated to be between 5 feet 2 inches tall and 5 feet 6 inches tall, and they couldn't pinpoint her weight due to the fact that her remains were skeletonized, but they guessed anywhere between 100 to 130 pounds. Also, due to her remains being skeletonized, they were unsure of her exact eye color. And when it came to her age, just like the estimated time that she could have died, there was a huge gap of time. They thought that she could have been anywhere between 17 to 27 years old, but they didn't rule out her being as old as 45. So she could have been anywhere between 17 to 45 years old, which is why some of the original composite sketches of her show her at an older age than she actually may have been. Most of the sketches in today's time show her at a younger age. Here is another composite sketch done of her in 1983, and you can tell that they definitely did not make her look between the ages of 17 to 27. As time went on in this case, they were able to better guess her age, but we'll get to that in a moment. Now, as most of us know, in cases of Jane and John Doe's, teeth is a huge thing. Dental records can help identify a person and was a main tool used back in the day before DNA testing. When it comes to this Jane Doe's teeth, she had extensive work done, and I mean extensive. I'm not going to include the photos of her actual teeth in this video, but they can be found online. Most of the work done to her teeth, though, did look like it was possibly done by a dental student, somebody still learning and needing practice rather than an actual dentist. She had received quite a few fillings, mostly silver fillings. She had a root canal done, and she had 2 gold crowns on her front left teeth. She also had 1 gold filling on her right upper side, and lastly, she had 2 angled wisdom teeth that were growing in, and this would have most likely caused her a lot of pain while she was alive. If you've ever had a wisdom tooth growing in sideways and pushing against your back tooth, trust me, you know the pain. It's bad. So she was most likely in pain while she was alive. Maybe not all the time, but occasionally. So this Jane Doe, she had a very distinct and uncommon dental chart. So authorities working on the case thought this may be their ticket to discovering her identity. They thought that they might be able to locate the place where she got all this work done and be able to find out who she was. But that just wasn't the case. Her dental chart, it never did much for this case. Now, we're gonna get into the cheerleader in the trunk thing. When you first heard of the name of this Doe, the name of this case, you may have thought that this was about a Jane Doe found inside a trunk who was possibly, say, wearing some sort of cheerleading uniform. That's kind of what I thought, the cheerleader in the trunk. Well, as we know, she was found completely naked and no cheerleading uniform. So why did they come up and how did they come up with the name cheerleader in the trunk? Well, there was some evidence when it came to her skeleton that shows that she may have been involved in a sport such as cheerleading. This evidence is what would ultimately lead to her unique Doe name. After examining her skeletal remains, they discovered that she had quite a bit of wear to her pelvis, and this sort of wear on her pelvis could have come from being very active in things such as horseback riding, skating, gymnastics, or cheerleading. This Doe, though, more than anything, suffered greatly from a condition called spondylolysis. Spondylolysis, which also is referred to as a pars defect, is a stress fracture, and this stress fracture takes place in the lower spine. The pars interarticularis is a thin bone segment joining two vertebrae, and through repetitive stress on this thin bone segment, it can crack or fracture, and that develops spondylolysis. You all should have seen the outtakes of me trying to say spondylolysis. This condition, though, it's quite common in people who are extremely active. Most people who have it may not experience any symptoms or just mild back pain. It is very common, especially in children and young adults who participate in sports that can put stress on that very part of your body. One of those sports just might be cheerleading. So in actuality, they don't have much proof she was a cheerleader, but based on the injuries of her skeleton, they do believe she may have been involved in something like dance, gymnastics, or cheerleading. When it comes to her feet did show some past injuries as well. They believed she was very active on her feet and that she most likely wore high heels on the regular while alive because the structure of her feet were consistent with that of the changed bone structure of someone who frequently wore heels. Also, to further push the theory she was an active girl, one of her toes had been broken in the past as well. Which, I mean, she could have merely dropped something on it, but breaking a toe can happen if you land the wrong way on it while doing something like we've said, dance, gymnastics, or cheerleading. They just kept leaning towards this, cheerleading thing. Like I stated before, it's a little hard to figure out exactly what her weight was while she was alive, but due to her obviously being active in life, she was most likely in shape and probably quite lean. By this point in the video, I know that many of you are probably wondering what her cause of death was. Well, that is also something that is kind of as well left up in the air. Now, bones at the bottom of her skull that connected to her jaw, they were broken. So there is a possibility that she could have died from strangulation, but that would have been a very forceful strangulation. They do not know if those injuries are what killed her or if the injuries to her bones had happened after she was already dead. Now, the top part of your spine has 7 vertebrae, C1 through C7. These are your neck vertebrae. One of these neck vertebrae of hers had dried blood on it. So again, this could have been due to strangulation, but still, they don't have enough solid proof to say that that was 100% her cause of death. Overall, though, based on the way her remains were found, they think, and I'm sure all of you do as well, that she was obviously a victim of homicide. A lot of information that I just went over was discovered in 1983 when an anthropologist, Dr. J. Lawrence Angel, analyzed her bones. They discovered most of the details surrounding her teeth and skeleton, but this anthropologist brought forward some more information that is very interesting and may paint a better picture when it comes to her backstory. For one, her skull was characterized as an old American skull, similar to that of people who have been in the United States for a few decades. So they do believe her family has lived here in the States for a few generations. That does, of course, not rule out that she could have been born in another country and then, you know, brought back here afterwards, but they do believe that her family has lived here for a few decades. This anthropologist, who I have to say was a very famous anthropologist, did determine that she was definitely well nourished during her life, mostly based on the broadness of the base of her skull and very roundness and fully developed pelvis. Due to her being well nourished, they believe that she was most likely from a middle to upper middle class. Also, due to the fact that she had so much dental work done and was involved in some sort of sport activity, there had to have been some money, you know, to pay for all of that. So they don't believe that she necessarily came from a poor family. This anthropologist, though, more than anything, helped narrow down her age. They believed that this Jane Doe was nowhere near 45 years old, that she was most likely in her early 20s. So after that, any composite sketches done of her showed a woman more around 20 to 25 years old, rather than the original sketches that showed a woman more towards her mid 40s. Through the years, like with any case, so many leads and tips came into the department working on this case, which is the Frederick Police Department. But none of it has really gotten them anywhere closer to solving this mystery. Her case has been featured on programs such as The New Detectives, Final Justice, and also Nancy Grace. Still, it didn't really get investigators anywhere. These programs would air, there would be tons of calls and emails, it would go anywhere, and then it would die down and they would be back to square one. And many more composite sketches and artist renderings have also been done through the years of her, of course showing her at a younger age than before. Like this one done by Don Stahl in 2012, this one done by Carl Koppelman in 2013, and the most recent, the one done by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children just last year in 2020. In that same year, just last year of 2020, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children decided to better narrow down her case information. They believed she most likely was killed 5 months to 3 years before her remains were located by the two mushroom hunters on that day in August of 1982. So her life most likely was taken between the years of 1979 to 1982. Still though, as of right now on their site, it does state that she could have been as old as 45, even though it is now strongly believed that she was much younger. So I know my subscribers are probably sitting there waiting for me to mention DNA testing. Well, I couldn't find any information about them attempting to extract DNA a second time, but years back, it was about 2012, they did attempt to extract DNA from her skeletal remains, and they were actually unable to create a DNA profile properly from that extracted DNA. From what I read, it just wasn't enough DNA. I'm sure with newer advancements in technologies since that year that they may be able to finally achieve that, but I couldn't find out anything more online regarding that. Right now in this case, it seems like they are fully depending on information online about her case and sketches done of her to hopefully identify her. Her DNA is not currently in the system from my findings, which of course is extremely unfortunate. If they are hopefully able to ever do that, I mean, you never know, there could be an immediate hit, which would be awesome. And as of right now, when I'm making this video, 20 women and girls have been ruled out as being this Jane Doe. Here are their names on the screen. I do have to say though, that if DNA testing does not discover her identity first, it just might be one of those cases that web sleuths do, because there is a thread on the site Web Sleuths, and people have been writing on this thread since the year 2006, trying their hardest to identify this Jane Doe, and also trying to piece together what her backstory may have been. There are quite a few missing girls and women brought up on that thread by a few users, and these individuals, to my knowledge, have not been ruled out as possibly being the cheerleader in the trunk yet. So within some time, I mean, maybe these people that are brought up on Web Sleuths will be tested, and maybe one of them could be her. I always give credit where credit is due. I have to say, Natasha Mullins on medium.com did an amazing, absolutely fabulous, and quite extensive write-up on this case. And she dove into a lot of the different theories that you can come across online while researching into this case. From the theory that, like I mentioned before, since she had extensive dental work done, maybe her family had a bit more money than the average family, to the theory that possibly this Jane Doe was not a cheerleader, but maybe she was an exotic dancer. And as we know, exotic dancers may sometimes be working for a company that doesn't protect them properly, or there could be someone that comes in to their place of work and develops an unhealthy obsession with one of the dancers, and that could result in something very unfortunate and horrible happening. There's also the theory that maybe she was never into sports at all, and maybe she was just a very hard worker, and whatever she was doing put a lot of stress on her lower back. Maybe it was some sort of a job where she had to lift heavy objects. There is the theory that she may have worked a lot on a farm growing up, and maybe that's where her injuries came from. I mean, we don't know what activities she did during her life, whether limited or extended, but whatever she had done did put some sort of regular strain on her lower back, enough to, of course, cause spondylosis. And then on a different note, when it comes to the dental work, maybe she only received extensive dental care because she was a dental student herself. But then again, if she was a student herself, wouldn't her fellow classmates realize she was missing and do something about it? I mean, maybe she was out of school. I don't know. There had to have been people around her that noticed she was gone and would have wanted to file a missing persons report for her. But I mean, maybe the people around her, maybe they did file a missing persons report, and that missing persons report is floating around a department halfway across the country from where she was found. And also, another huge theory that is brought up in this case is that possibly she had been hitchhiking. We're just gonna take a quick look at Frederick County right now. If you look at Frederick County, the area is basically an intersection of a lot of main roads. And if you look at Gambrel State Park, look at it, it's right off of US 40. As heartbreaking as it is, it would have been quite easy for a person to hop off a main road to dispose of remains in a trunk and leave the area, never to be seen again. I mean, hitchhiking was so common back then, and it could explain perfectly why no one in that area seems to know who she is. She could have loved ones in another state wondering whatever happened to her. The list of theories goes on in this case, but people loved her, people cared for her, and those people, after nearly 40 years, deserve to know what happened to her, and she deserves her name back. So, with that being said, if you have any information at all about this case, you are urged to contact the Frederick Police Department at either 301-600-2100 or 301-600-2101. Tips can also be called into the Maryland Chief Medical Examiner at 410-333-3250. Remember always that you can stay anonymous. So that is the case of the cheerleader in the trunk, who, in my opinion, shouldn't have really been called the cheerleader in the trunk. I don't understand why they chose a name for her when there is no solid proof that she actually was a cheerleader. I mean, what if she, while she was alive, hated cheerleading? I mean, they had no proof that she was actually a cheerleader. And I've looked up this case a lot online, and there's a lot of people who said, you know, I did cheerleading for 10 years of my life, 15 years of my life, and I never developed the condition that she had. I don't think that she was a cheerleader. So, I mean, we never know. I don't know why they didn't just call her Gambrel State Park Jane Doe, because that's where she was found, and that's what they name a lot of Jane and John Does, is the area where they were found. But maybe they thought that if they named her something mysterious like the cheerleader in the trunk, that it would develop some sort of more popularity and spread around more. Maybe they would solve it that way. I don't know. But that is just a personal opinion of mine. Everyone has one. But I hope that with my Doe-cember series this year that you all have been learning about some Doe cases that you may have not heard of, because I think All the ones that I've been covering, I have just heard about in like the last year. I know that they're not as publicized as some of the other ones. Thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to listen to this case. I hope that everybody is having a great holiday season. And like always, I will see you all in the next one.